Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1333 of our daily content grind. So, the new Haslab is out. People are starting to get it. Maybe you've already gotten yours. Maybe you're still waiting on a shipping email. Really just kind of depends on luck of the draw. It is not proximity to California or wherever these happen to be shipping out from. Does not matter when you actually ordered yours as far as like how early in the campaign you put in. It seems to just be random who is getting theirs when. So don't worry if yours is late. Don't worry if yours still hasn't given you any kind of shipping notification. They're on the way. And this should be a joyous time. Usually when Haslabs come out, social media is just a buzz of people throwing their images on there. Everyone's taking screenshots of characters together. Everyone's doing all kinds of crazy videos. And it's a wonderful thing because these are supposed to be the exciting top tier toys that Hasbro produces, right? We have so many widespread issues with this toy. Unfortunately, that is not the case here. So we know by now that the Omega Prime launch has been cursed. So this has been widely reported by multiple Transformer news sites. I don't normally go outside of TFW, but like even like here's Sabertron's article about it, where yeah, like there is a major issue with this toy. Specifically, if you have not been paying attention, the midsection assembly is way too tight internally, meaning that it will either break upon trying to slide the joint, or it will just break on its own due to the extreme added pressure. Now, the important thing to remember here is it's not every single one of them. If you got yours and it's fine, and you can transform yours and there's no cracks or anything on your belly, congratulations. But that does not diminish the experience other people are having. Don't go around bragging about, oh, mine's perfectly fine. There's a lot of people angry that theirs is not. So don't be that guy going around talking about how I didn't have it, so obviously it's not a big deal. No. We've got multiple news sites reporting this. We've got Hasbro fully aware of what's going on. There is a lot going. This is big. This is really, really big. So let's go over this first off, because there has been responses. First off, I do want to show, as I showed on my box opening for Omega Prime, this is what mine looks like, and this is minor compared to some. You can see the stress marks there. You can see the formation, the start of some hairline cracks. It does go down through the part, and it does go up into that silver on the belly. This is minor. This is minor compared to some. It is cracked all the way through, by the way, because I did have a lubricant leaking out on mine. Yes, you can all make the Ironhide reference. We get it. Does not diminish how angry I am that this is happening on mine, because this is a $250 figure. This should not be happening on any of these. So that's a frustrating one. It's a very frustrating one, but others are far worse off. Like here's an example of what it really looks like. Dr. Robo's picture here on Reddit. Yeah, that's cracked all the way through. And that is a bad crack. And keep in mind, even gluing this, it's never going to be as structurally stable as it was ever designed to be. The break is always going to be there. It's always going to be prone to breaking again. So this is an issue. Even if you go through a repair, this is an issue. So the weird thing here is that the early emails people were getting back when they were reporting this sounded actually kind of promising. So see, please be sure I have shared your concerns with the product team. We'll be pleased to arrange an exchange for you. Please return Optimus Prime and accessories. So it actually sounded like they just wanted Optimus Prime back, and you could keep the Magnus, which, aside from one thing we'll mention here in a minute, seems to be fine for everybody. There's no like mass breakage on that toy. To help facilitate the process of attach a postage paid mailing label to this email to assist you with returning the product to us. So Hasbro being good at making sure that you don't even have to pay for postage in order to get it back to them for a return. It almost feels like, as though they were trying to like go through like the normal steps for a return. Though it does mention a specific message at the bottom, like in all excitement of the Ultimate Combiner getting ready to ship to our fans, the replacement parts for this Haslab have not yet made it across the global space bridge. So here's the thing. Clearly, while this is a stock email when it comes to literally any kind of return that they can actively replace, that message at the bottom is specifically for Omega Prime, and it does indicate that part of their production for a Haslab, and this makes total sense, is to have replacement parts at the ready because they're going to have some QC issues. However, while this was all really positive, Hasbro's going to own up to this and they're just going to replace or repair them for us, that's not the case now. That's not the case now. Originally, it was reported that the parts would be in late June, meaning like late June, early July, you might be able to get your Omega Prime back and enjoy it as intended. But things have changed. Here is the email I got after reporting the exact same incident. We are aware that some customers may have experienced issues with the product, and we apologize for the inconvenience this may have caused. Corporate speak to downplay the severity of the problem. They know this is a really bad thing and a lot of people are going through it. Our Hasbro customer care and quality team is actively investigating to identify a solution as quickly as possible. In the meantime, please keep your item for now and stay tuned for future updates. So I assume that once they realized how widespread this problem was and how big it would actually be in order to repair, they cut off all of that talk of, oh, mail it in and we'll just get you your replacements once they're here. That is out the window. That is out the window. Because they have switched the response, it tells me this is a way wider spread problem than they ever realized. This is bad. This is really, really freaking bad. So just to point out, just so we have it clear here. So there are issues with the Magnus in that some people have actually gotten yellowed plastic from it, which is a problem Hasbro supposedly fixed, last year or year before. It's been a bit. It's been a hot minute since we had a yellow plastic issue. Now, I'm suspicious of this because it is like unevenly tinted. Usually the yellowing plastic is even all over across the parts. So I'm not entirely sure whether or not this is a one-off problem, because this could also just as easily be just like a bad batch mix. It's kind of hard to tell, but it does give us pause for concern about the Magnus as well. So now everyone's waiting to see if theirs starts turning a lovely shade of yellow or not, which will ironically match my original 2001, but it aged in order to get its yellow. It didn't just magically turn yellow on the way from Vietnam. But that seems to be a minor thing compared to the cracks in the Omega Prime. And yeah, it's different all over. Every single one I've seen has the cracks in a different way. Specifically, what's happening inside is that the slider piece is too tight, and it is breaking off all of these little tabs that create the friction for the piece. That's not great. Now, because the fandom is this fandom, and because we've dealt with QC issues a lot over the years from Hasbro, there is, of course, a way of fixing this people have quickly discovered. Now, this is repair from Scotty P, which is a really good breakdown of how to do it, but it is, it seems long, but all you're really going to need is some sandpaper or sanding stick, a screwdriver, and maybe a towel to clean, or a towel or like a wet rag or something to clean up plastic dust. That's it. That's all you're really going to need here. And then all you're really doing is just unscrewing the torso until you can get into that slider. So the suggested fix is to sand down the edges of that gray block, that slider, until It has the clearance it needs to hold and have friction, but not so much that it's snapping the tabs or cracking the belly. The thing about this is, we don't know exactly how Hasbro intends to fix this issue. They could send, the replacement parts involved could be that big red piece that you see, or it could be the gray piece. We don't know which one they're going to repair. Like, so if you go through this as a temporary repair job, so you can mess with your Omega Prime right now, and you go through one of the repairs, you might be repairing the wrong part. So to start a repair on this, fair warning, you will be stuck with the repaired version. I would suggest not mailing it into Hasbro for any kind of replacements unless you know for sure they're going to 100% replace the entire toy, which most likely they're not going to do because this is a big, expensive, low production toy. So be cautious. Like, if you want yours like completely 100% fixed without any kind of cracks, without any, persisting, without any kind of modifying or anything like that, don't do anything to your Omega Prime. Don't do anything to your Omega Prime because you might be fixing something like for instance, if you sand down the gray piece so that everything works smoothly, and then Hasbro says, okay, we're ready to repair those. Just mail it in. We'll get you a repaired one soon, as soon as we can. You mail it in, you get it back. They've replaced the red piece to widen out a little bit. Well, now if it really is a full repair job to your Omega Prime, well, now that red piece doesn't work. Because now it's too far from the piece you sanded down. That's my concern here. So if you want yours fully repaired, wait until Hasbro has a solution in mind. Now, when it comes to that, there's only really a couple options they have here. No matter what, they're going to need replacement parts from the factory, whether that is the red belly piece that's being cracked or the gray piece that is causing the cracks. Either way, one of these parts is going to need replacing, and there's no easy way to do this. They could take the original mold and gate off all the extra plastic so that just that mold, just that piece is produced from that mold. Now, that would be an expensive process because it's not cheap to go in and modify a mold. Also, you don't exactly know where in the mold that piece actually lives. If it's not next to a spout where the plastic gets injected into the mold, then you're talking about like an entire tunnel, like a little like maze that it would have to cross through just to get plastic into that one part. And that could mean a massive amount of changes to the mold, or a whole lot of dead parts that get produced and are completely unusable. Sometimes they can remelt the plastic, sometimes they can't. So I'm going to assume that's just going to be waste at the end of the day, which that would be expensive. Not to mention how expensive using such a heavy mold is, and only producing one part per use of the mold. That is going to take a lot of labor, and it's going to be extremely expensive to do. The alternative is to have a brand new mold produced that's just the replacement part, which would get it done a lot faster with a lot less man hours, but that does require producing a brand new mold. That is also expensive. And yes, there are real world circumstances that are going to make getting those replacement parts from Vietnam even more expensive than that for Hasbro. We're not going to discuss those today. Do not discuss it in the comments section, where I am a strict no politics, community, I guess. Yeah, don't bring it up. Don't bring it up. They will get caught. I will delete them. We're just acknowledging that is part of the problem here. Just to add even more complication and nightmare to this entire scenario. So that is it. That's their two options for obtaining the replacement parts. Now here are the other two options they have when it comes to the actual repair. Option A, they tell you to mail it in and they do the replacement parts themselves. The problem with that is you're going to end up with potentially 10,000 Optimus Primes mailed back to Hasbro, which is going to take a huge amount of warehouse space, a huge amount of workspace, and all the workers that need to be hired in order to go in and replace each and every one of these parts. That's not an easy task. You know, they're not. I'm sure they're set up for like a shop like this is set up for standard replacement, right? You mail in your old toy that didn't work, and they just mail you out a fresh copy, you know, that's from the warehouse, and that's it. You know, and then, you know, usually the defect is disposed of. That's not a viable option here because of the limited run nature of the Omega Prime. So you could set up a repair facility like that, but that is going to be an enormously expensive endeavor on what we have already discussed is an expensive endeavor. So on top of all this, your other option is to just mail fans the replacement piece and with instructions on how to properly replace the parts yourself. So that is a much easier way of doing it. I presume with how expensive the replacement parts are going to be to create one way or another, that's going to have to be the only option that will save them any kind of money on this. But then you run the risk of, you know, you could almost produce a class action lawsuit out of this if enough people are upset with the solution, because now they're like misrepresenting what they were offering originally, right? And, you know, and they're not providing like, you know, a proper replacements or anything like that. So this becomes an incredibly tricky endeavor. Me personally, I'm comfortable with a screwdriver, so I would have no issue actually just getting the replacement parts myself. And if that's the solution, fine. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. We're still waiting to find out what Hasbro is going to do, because this is such a widespread issue. It's not going to be an easy choice no matter what. And hopefully we get an answer soon. And hopefully it's satisfying enough. I know because of the nature of Haslab, and because they desperately need to preserve the confidence that people have in Haslabs, you know, otherwise who's gonna back the next one if this is the kind of thing they're producing? So they need to make this right, and they need to make it as right as possible. They know that, or else there's not going to be any Haslabs left. No one's going to go in for the next one. And it brings up a lot of worry about Lyle Kaiser now, if something like this is going to happen with him, because that's a way more complicated toy. Now, this does get into one other topic about this that I've been seeing floating around. Let's actually like put the proper blame here. So this is already a PR disaster for Hasbro, because because that's all people are talking about with this toy. The people who got good ones are really talking it up. You know, PR, in what might be his final review according to the end of that video. So like salute to PR for 17 years of service to this fandom. But one of the, you know, like he talked about this toy for an hour, and it seems like he absolutely adored it. And, you know, and yeah, like it's just a better version of the Omega Prime toy from 2001, which was already a fantastic toy. So of course this one was going to be good, but but no one's really talking about that. What everyone's talking about is the breaks, and we have another wave of people who just got their shipping notifications, and now we're all just waiting with bated breath. Was it just the first batch? Was it just the first batch, and the people who are getting their Omega Prime this week or next week are actually going to get decent ones? Or is it just going to be more of the same? You know, if you are Hasbro, what do? Do you like open them up and then investigate each and every single Optimus Prime to see if it's broken or not before you mail it out? That's probably on the table somewhere, just to make sure that more of these broken ones don't get out in the wild, because that's already taken over the entire discourse about this toy. Just how bad of a QC issue this is. So you're already losing customer faith with this. That's on top of all the monetary expense Hasbro is going to face over this. But you also, it's this total lack of confidence we're going to have on the next Haslab. So I know they're going to make it right, but if you want to cast blame, I've already seen ridiculous claims over this. Someone blamed the people with the toys. They say like, oh, well, I've done this and that, and from my experience, this is not an easy thing to do. So this doesn't happen. This is clearly user error. This is clearly people just not handling the toy correctly and breaking it, very easily. No, I did my box opening. I checked mine live and confirmed in real time. Yes, mine also has cracks in the midsection. If I were to try to transform it, those cracks would go all the way through the midsection of the figure. No, that's not it. That gets like worryingly close to victim blaming, which is never cool to do. If your immediate thought is to blame the people who are suffering in a situation, you're probably not on the right side of that situation. Just saying. Now, do we blame Hasbro for producing a low quality product? Based on the previous Haslabs, I would say no. Because the worst QC issue Haslabs had before this was, a little bit of oversight on Star Saber, because some of his chrome can get scratched if you're not careful combining him to the V-Star. Okay, that's an oversight. Didn't hear any QC issues with Death Stars, the previous, the most recent one before that. No QC issues I know of with Unicron, and thank the gods for that one. So yeah, this just seems to be a random one-off. The thing to remember here is that Hasbro gets the prototypes before anyone else. They run through them meticulously because they don't want a bad product to go out that's going to make them look bad and cause a huge problem like this. This is the last thing they want. So they're going to make sure 1,000% that whatever that toy comes out as the first prototype, they're going to make sure it works. They're going to make sure up and down, left and right, that it works. Here's probably what happened. Hasbro probably informed the factory that the midsection slider was a little bit loose on the prototype and just beef it up a little bit. And that's probably just a little bit of feedback they got to the factory, just like 0.5 millimeter is all you need. Just a tiny little bit thicker, just so it's a little bit stiffer and holds up all the parts better. And the factory will take information like that and they will make a guess. And because this is on a timer, because this is on this has to be in fans' hands at this time, they probably did not go through the proper checks to make sure that this actually worked. So no, for me, the only ones that I could possibly blame for this is the factory, who either made an adjustment without properly testing it, or who just did something wrong when producing the mold to make the parts just a little bit misfit. Because that's really the only level where an error like this happens. So don't immediately blame Hasbro. Certainly don't blame the people who got a broken $250 toy. No. I'm blaming production on this one. Because we know the QC out of the Vietnam factories, ever since Hasbro moved everything Transformer there, has been extremely slipshod. It has been a really rough time with QC problems across the board. That even goes into Takara product, because that's when we started getting issues with Masterpiece toys too. So we know where the problem lies because we've seen it in the past. This just happens to be a really, really bad place for that factory's QC to come back and haunt it again. But that's pretty much what we have right now. It's one of the biggest disasters Hasbro could possibly have, and the timing for it is absolutely horrible. So fingers crossed that this gets this gets solved in a satisfactory way, because it's a great toy, and I would really like to experience that toy without being afraid of it. Right now, I can't do that. A lot of fans can't do that. And part of me really wants to know how widespread this really is. Over 25,000 of these were made. How many of that 25,000 suffers that problem? Because if this many people from the first batch have already reported this many issues, this many breaks, this is going to get bad. If we think it's bad now, wait until all 25,000 or so are out. then we're going to see how bad it is. But that is it from me. Let me know in the comments section if you got your Omega Prime and what condition it came in. We can start collecting the data ourselves if you would let me know how yours turned out. I'm in the broken category. So let me know in the comments, and as always, I will see you next time. Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.